I am not convinced anymore that I can be a solo developer.
Where do you go? You don't go anywhere. You're just done.
Hey there, I'm Connor, and I've sold $100 in gross sales on Steam. I'm here with my co-host Corey, who has sold over $1 million in gross sales on Steam. This is a podcast about game development where we figure out what it takes to be a successful indie dev. How are you doing, Corey? How are things going this past week?
We're leveling up. Our intro is just getting better and better. That's right. Just like my game releases, they're getting better and better. I've been just maxed. I dreamed the code. I dreamed the AI stuff. The AI is integrated into me. I pulled one game stats this morning just for laughs. August 1st to now, which is August 8th August 7th actually, when we record this. And it's like 25,000 lines added, like 5,000 lines removed. And that's just one game.
And you have three. You have three going on all at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, lines added are not a good metric. It's just
Sure.
Just for laughs and giggles and whatnot. But yeah, it's I think we'll be in a fine spot right now. It's definitely a crunch, and it's like, oh goodness, like last minute things and this and that. There's an argument to be, depending on how good or bad the games are. If they're bad, they're going to be like, well, maybe you shouldn't have waited this long, or maybe if it had been better. And if it's stellar success, no one's going to question it, and they're going to be like, damn, I can't believe you pulled it off in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
Or it could have maybe been better if you had more time, but I don't live in that world. You just have to keep going. There's too many deadlines. I have no time to think about that stuff. It's just ship.
Yeah. Well, and can you walk us through like where in the development cycle are you, and what is like your role in it? Because I think, we know that you're working with partners on all these projects and things like that too, but where you are, like what is the part of the process that you're doing, and like what are those lines of code?
Sure.
If you can share anything.
So I'm in the stage of the games are mechanically done. So the functionality is there, the UI is there, how things move, what the abilities are, what the power-ups are all there. And now it's like stitching that together to have the player experience then like a good onboarding, good journey, good pacing. They feel like it's worth their time. They're not got a lot of friction. They feel like it's rewarding for their level of effort and time and what they're paying, contributing in terms of money. And then also making sure it hits the time of what they expect for these types of games. And not also feeling like it's just a grind. Like the time is just extrapolated just for the sake of, I'll make the game 2 to 3 hours just for whatever, Steam refunds or just perceived value to the player. No, though, they're very good at catching that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. Okay. So then, like, how do you separate that difference between like a core mechanic versus like a new ability or something like that, where it's like, are you adding more like features and things? Like, how do you draw that so you're also not like getting that scope creep? Because I've definitely been in that situation before where I think I'm done, and like I never know when it like quite stumbles from pre-production into production. How do you make that separation?
When you have a deadline like this, it's not scope creep. It's wholly I have to finish, and whatever needs to be in there for the task to be done is just mandatory.
Okay.
So if I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can't balance this mechanic because there's not enough levers, or it's just not working, it's either I revamp it on the spot, or we remove it, or we find something else. So the game has changed. All three of these games have changed. They still are changing, to be quite honest. Orb Breaker, just in the last week, we've rechanged the whole game. We got rid of the concept of multiple resources. We're down to one main and one boss currency instead of like a one main and one kill enemies and one boss. So minus one whole currency, which changed the skill tree, which changes the game, changes how you're onboarding people, why there was different currencies. Just keep fishing. We're changing some of the UI around power-ups and making it easier to understand what's happening when you're getting these power-ups. And mining and dwarves on like all over the place. I'm changing how core functionality works. Like, you have this this one ability in the base game right before I made this change wouldn't refresh the cooldowns. Now it does. But that changes all the timing of how you would play as a player. Like, do I activate this thing during or after? And they're learning
Yeah.
strategies like this. If you tell it, oh, it's not going to reduce the cooldown if it's already active, and this ability is going to disappear, you have to wager, okay, do I get it now and take some of the cooldowns, or do I try and wait out? Like, there's just a lot.
Yeah.
So some of it I'm sure is scope creep, but it's such a time pressure that you're just like, if it's going to take me more than max 1 hour, I'm like, no time, next, just
Yeah.
remove.
Yeah. And when did you learn some of those skills? Because, I think what you're talking through is when you're working on these games, you're sitting there, you're playing it, you're going through, you're making these changes, and then you notice that there's going to be like you make like it's really like the game design part of it. You make one change here, and that impacts the experience, and you're really thinking from the player like perspective. So how did you learn this? Is it because incremental games are very much like this kind of everything is very close knit in the way you're going through the experience that you can see these things? Is it just practice over time? Where did you start to see these patterns and know that that was the approach that you would take to then solve some of these design problems that pop up?
I I just spent so much time in this like business product development background, and it's just come natural to me, always seeing an opportunity or integration, or if we did this but this and this a little bit differently, oh, we could do that. So even in this final stage of like balancing or figuring out how the players could play the game, particularly with Mining Dwarfs, because that's what I'm spending all my time right now, this day as, is, oh man, I can see so many opportunities to get the game like much longer play time and still give the player tons of like things to do. It's
Yeah.
like, oh wait, if I can finish on time, why don't I just add this prestige system right at the end and really allow the player to come back and play way quicker? And I have all these other mechanics. So that stuff just, and it's not just ideas for the sake of ideas. I'm actually like, oh, that's good to have like high concurrent users and keep them in your game longer. Good drive signals to Steam. And I don't think it's going to be for the sake of just having it. Just
Yeah.
spending enough time in this, like, I don't know, 30 hours straight on just this
Yeah.
project. Like, for those listening, I wake up like this morning. Okay, I woke up at 4:30. I took a shower. I came to my computer. Then I took a 20-minute nap before the podcast, and we got on the podcast. The entire rest of the time, aside from when I got up for 20, 30 minutes to get food and use the bathroom, has literally just been the game. Now, it's been like that way for a month. Not just this game, all three games, but like every day is just like, yeah, yeah. So,
That's a lot.
well, if
It
you
seems-
spend enough time in this, you find these things. It
Yeah.
just starts, you start being like, huh, I need a knob over here. There needs to be a way to do this with the player. It's not really fun even if I'm playing here. How would the player enjoy it? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and for me, I'm part-time dev. So I have, instead of being 4:30 in the morning, it's in the night after work, after things have kind of settled down in the house. And then that's when I get a little bit of focus time too. But it seems like it really doesn't change, whether you're part-time, whether you're full-time. It comes down to how much are you allocating to getting some of this exposure and like sitting there. Like I'm going through the same thing of, hey, I need to play test this thing. Is the experience that I want? And it sounds like even for you, that's really all that it is it's going through, thinking about what you want to implement, doing it. And it just means that you have more hours in a day to do that, maybe compared to me, or maybe where it's the same, because if you're running a business full time, maybe there's other parts that you have to give your allocation to. So generally, like if you were going to say per day, how many hours, maybe not right now, but normally are you really getting in on game dev, doing this design and those things? Is it really a full 8 hours of the day, or is it much more segmented?
I don't know, because like if you went back before before June, there was some game dev. I don't know, like 3, maybe 5 hours, and not even Monday
Okay.
or Friday. I personally like working all days. I would rather short amount of hours in the week and just every day than just larger. Obviously, now is different because
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no
Much more
time to do
intense.
that.
Yeah.
And I actually think it doesn't matter part-time or full-time, because I've seen plenty of people who go full-time and then they actually complain that they feel like they even have less time because now they're like, it won't take as much.
Yeah.
Or sorry, they're spending less time on game dev than when they were just part-time. And for me right now, I can say that's true because full-time I wasn't putting as much time as now. And the main thing is not full-time. The main thing is I have an unmovable date to how these games are being released that requires all three to absolutely finish. I cannot move the dates. They revolve around like a discount and deal with many other games. Everyone's aligned to this date, August 27th. It's not moving.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's more of a production timeline at that point, and it's a matter of how do you get what you need there. And would you be thinking about like what things are really extra scope that you would just say, hey, we just have to do with what we deal with? It's like those are some of the decisions that you're considering going through, or is it just you replace it with it just has to happen, and if you feel like it's in there, it's like just do it.
I don't know. In my own head, it's very easy to just do the trade-offs and make a good spot of like, okay, this is worth the time or not. There's no rule. There's no framework I have. There's no like, oh, I somehow Excel sheet out the viable consumer market to this feature. One, I don't even have the time to do that. But two, I think I've just done this in my prior professional life in working for these companies and being so involved in a product that it's very intuitive to me to just look and go, yeah, that's worth it. It's only going to take me X amount of time. Also, I've been doing software development for 15 plus years before this. So I have a good napkin math of like exactly what this is going to take. And then obviously with like Codex is what I'm using. That's just like a multiplier for me, especially in my workflow. It's pretty unique. I know because I've talked to enough devs and enough studios now that it's my humble opinion, light years ahead of everyone else right now. Like just
that's your humble opinion, is that?
Because I'm looking at how other people are using it. I hate when podcasts go AI, but I guess we're going AI a little bit.
We will have a customer, not a customer. We'll have a listener question to be able to answer that more in detail. But yeah, tell us now, like, what is your perspective on that? Like, what is your usage? Why do you humbly think that you are light years ahead of everybody else?
Okay, this is the level of my interaction. My machine runs a Linux distro. That's not the key thing. That's not all of a sudden I'm super AI native. It has custom kernel flags just to squeeze out performance on my machine to get the most amount of work possibly done. Now, people are going to think I'm running the model myself. No. See, the rate of which you get work is done. If we spend this day, let's say me and you, Connor, and we wrote the exact same prompt, right? And it takes you, and the token usage is the same. So the cost of using OpenAI in this case is the same, 100 and 100. Okay. If I said it takes your task 8 hours to finish and takes mine 1 hour to finish, you'd go, wait, what happened? We're not talking about the effective usage of the model or what our token spend is. The exact same prompt will say it's deterministic, no RNG, exact same weights. The model has not had additional data, exactly the same. And mine takes 1 hour, you should take 8 hours. Well, when you start actually going through and graphing out everything, you start realizing I'm not spending all the time just waiting for OpenAI's model to respond to me. I'm spending a ton of time on my computer, on Codex, running find commands and grubbing through the Git statuses and everything like this to send information back. So the faster I can process all that, the quicker it goes back to OpenAI, which means the answer I get back is quicker, which means the 1 hour task on my side is 8 hours for yours.
Yeah. So essentially what you're doing
very
is
few people are doing this.
You found the bottleneck and you're addressing it in, it sounds like a custom configuration then on your side.
I got custom kernel flags on. I got all custom system processes. Like I'm not even running the standard find binary. Like everything is tuned to maximize the most I can get out of.
That's fascinating. So maybe we could dive into that question from the last episode.
Sure.
That was one of the things that came up was, what is the impact of AI on the future of game dev and, what is the outlook? I mean, I think for sure some of the things in the conversation are there's an environmental impact that's just, happening. I think that's going to be beyond what we're going to talk about in this podcast, but to acknowledge that, but then some of it would be, displacement of jobs, different functions, maybe what you're talking about with coding and the ways of working. It's a big question to tackle, but what do you think would be the biggest impact just in general for the game dev industry?
Um, I guess it's gonna become public. Uh-oh. Behind the scenes, this is what I've told those who will listen that I chat to in game dev world. In 18 months, I think you're out of job.
All game devs or wait, just who? Who? Oh man.
Pretty much. I could say 99.9%.
Okay.
That's super extreme, but
Sure.
I think it's going to feel like that magnitude. It won't actually be 99.9, but you'll look around and everyone will be out. It'll be agriculture like 2.0, when that employed, I don't know what the number is, let's say probably 15, 20% of the whole population in the US or Canada. And now it's in Canada, I looked this up, it's like less than 4%.
Okay.
So you have like a 4 or 5x decrease on the jobs.
Yeah.
And there it was easier because you could go into things like mechanical trades that elsewhere because of agriculture exposing you to things like that. If you're in game dev and you're like, wait, the logical thing to move into would be creative work. Okay, AI is destroying. Other technical like comp sci related jobs, dead if this happens as well. So where do you go? You don't go anywhere. You're just done.
Sure, sure. And I guess like what I'm trying to think about is how much would these tools enable people to make games? Like let's say that, big studios, they're doing whatever they're doing. Is there any opportunity for someone who just wanted to make games to just do that still? Or like does it change the people who just want to make games, put them out there, and that's kind of it? Like what would those expectations be? It's like, is it fewer sales, higher competition?
You gotta spend time on these.
Hmm.
Like you gotta treat it just like game design. You would
Okay.
spend how much time becoming a better game designer, building your games, and then I turn around and I'm asking people like, how much time are you spending with AI and pushing the limits? Like there are times where I'm just like, I bet you it can't do this. Let me see how far I can go. And sometimes I'm surprising myself in the process of being like, whoa, I estimate this by a long shot at how far it can do this and how well it can do this.
Mhm.
You can take a capsule right now of any Steam page and you can say on like ChatGPT, you can say, you are an expert in color theory. Tell me this capsule or make a grid of 10 images with this capsule. And I have yet to find a time where it made it worse.
Okay.
Just the saturation, the contrasting, the brightness, the coloring, all these things, it's just flawless. Like it just understands what works with the human eye. It just
Sure.
knows exactly how to make it pop on everything. Maybe if you're like literally the 0.1% of capsule artists, you're like, I could do it better than that. But for most of us, it's going to take that to a whole other level. And you don't even have to use it yourself. Like Steam has a disclosure. Okay, you work with an artist, your capsule artist. They give you something back. Instead of you saying, I don't know, it doesn't look as good, I want it to pop more. That's the most subjective thing you could ever tell them. So
Yeah.
they go off, they do something, come back, nah, still want it more pop. Maybe this, maybe move this, maybe do that, try this. Instead, I can go to AI, have a grid of 10 images, cycle. Whoa, what's that? Wow, that's exactly what I want. I go back to the artist and say, this is what I'm looking for in this style, but with your artistic spin on it of how you normally do it, or these saturations with your drawing.
Gotcha. So it sounds like, there's still room for expertise. That number probably the bar to get there is probably a lot higher as to what people would expect. But it's almost like the tools can help with bring up the skill floor in a way to get to the point where then you can get the experts in or whomever. Or if you didn't want to use it, you still could do that, recognizing that, there is going to be a gap between what a model might be able to produce versus what someone who's learning along the way might be able to produce. And that's kind of like where the jump becomes. Is that right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
right. And to really hit this home, because I don't think I did a good job exactly. I just said 18 months, and you're like, spook speech, doomsday. But to try and drive that home, it's like I work with, 3 other game devs who have, launch games. Some launch very successful, others launch, modest success. And only today am I showing them some of the tooling I have for these 3 games. And even then, they're like, wait, what? They're like, what are you doing over there? Like even my own business partner doesn't understand the full extent, because in the last 2 weeks, my level has just gone through the roof with this sort of tooling that now, because of the crunch, I haven't fully been able to show them and walk them through. And it's
Sure.
just like, wait, what? Wait, we have a tool for that? How's that working? What's this doing? Like, I'll give it a simple one. I don't want to go divulge
Sure.
too much of this stuff.
Okay.
But like any game that we would publish now, we have a desktop application that does the entire release process end to end. So you don't need to run the Steam command line tool anymore. You don't
Okay.
need to go into Steamworks and upload a zip file. It's all standardized. It works on any OS. It also will handle Godot and Unity, the build process on that side. So I just say, I want to build and release. Literally in the UI. It runs Unity, Godot, takes the exports, automatically does everything. All I've done is write a little configuration on the app IDs, uploads it. I take out my phone, 2-factor. It's there. Done.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, that could be something that you could write today, right? Like just even without LLMs or anything like that. It just sounds like that's a tool, but you were able to just
Took me less than
create
2
this.
hours.
Yeah.
Like,
The time investment, but like that could now just be a tool that exists that you either have in your pipeline, but other people could have, or maybe other studios already do have this. It's just now more accessible to people to have this as well.
the example for time perspective is, Stefan Sockhouse, he had written this, I don't know, maybe with some codex help or something, a little script tool to do this. It took him like a day. I came back in less than 2 hours. I'm like, I have a generic cross-platform, multi-engine. We can ship whatever we want. It's not just a CLI. It's come with a full GUI. And it's like, what? I'm like,
Yeah.
yep.
I mean, I wrote something like that too for helping deploy to itch using Butler and Steam command line and stuff. And that took me multiple days. I am much slower than Sockhouse, but yeah, I did it all by hand and it definitely took a while. But then I use it all the time. So it's like, I don't have to go back and rewrite it. It's like really, really helpful to have. But yeah, it was a time investment, and that's like we were talking about before. If I only have so many hours in a day, that's however many hours that I'm not doing game designing, kind of getting back to
Just a
thinking
day
about how
to
I
2
want things.
hours.
Yeah, it's huge. It's
Like,
huge.
that's 4x. Now,
Yeah.
okay, the conspiracy theory I have is this.
Okay.
Tinfoil hat, everyone. Why would you ever go out into the market and say that AI is effective to all your competitors? Why would you not go out and... I always hear the corporate stories, AI is not as good as everyone says. It's only actually 10% as efficient as you think it is. Why would I ever go out and publicly say to any of my competitors that, oh, by the way, this is going to make you 4 to 10 times probably faster? Not on all things, but in some things. And if you're in game dev, the other thing is I don't have as many concerns about things like, oh, what happens if it wipes out the player save file? I mean, obviously I don't want that to happen and I can write tests. But the difference
Yeah.
in working on like a company is like, what happens if this wipes out like customer data and deletes the backup? And we're
Sure.
non-recoverable.
Yeah.
Like-
What you're saying is essentially the impact of the data that gets handled within a video game is different than the level of enterprise software that might be dealing with, human personal
Also,
data and things like
swapping
that.
out things. Like if the model comes back, it's like, yo, I just rewrote the entire code base so you could get the performance you want, but I dropped all these other things that you're using. I'm like, cool. We got the end case. And the company,
Yeah.
they're like, that library has gone through compliance checks. That's pinned. We can't move it. That will trigger all this. Other teams bank on knowing how that tool works. There's all this
Right, right.
expertise. But in particularly small and in game dev, you can be super lean and nimble
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the end result is just, did the customer have a good time and did they enjoy
yeah,
what they paid for?
yeah. So walk me through like your perspective because like I want to find a way for people to just and maybe you're not the right person to ask, but I want people to have that hope, right? Because it's like I
There's
think
no
so many
hope.
people.
Don't ask me for hope.
All right, well I'll talk about it then. But I just want to find out like I'm doing game dev because I want to put my work out there. Like I've grown up with these games. I have ideas that I want to find that fun. I'll create these fantasies and deliver upon those things. And I think there's part of the conversation where it's a tooling because what you're talking about definitely is more like the speed, how you can be more efficient with it, how you can put products out at like a rapid pace. In addition to, I think you talked a little bit about like retention and some of the things that the algorithms want to see to push your game out more, right? You're getting the algorithms to get more visibility on your game. There's going to be a subsection of people who just love the craft of making games. It'd be like a woodworker, right? It's like
Yep.
you could use machines and stuff, but you want to do everything by hand, and that's kind of the work that you're known. It's like it seems like that is still a viable option. It's just the number of people who can support each path is going to be fewer and fewer, or that the people who are those crafts people, they're going to have to find a different way that is not the Steam algorithm, right? It's like if you are choosing to participate in the algorithmic marketing side of things, that is going to be a different meta and strategy compared to someone who is like, hey, here's my Patreon, I'm working on this game for 10 years, and here's all my devlogs, right? Like they're just two separate. Is that a
Well,
valid way to look
on
at
the
it?
on the woodworking though, I would say is you're a hobbyist and you just like doing it and you're not doing it to make a living. Or today, if you're doing woodworking and let's say it's manual tools, then you are at the very end of high quality bar and your
Right, right,
expertise
right.
is expected to be literally that. Like,
Right.
again, if I go and look at woodworkers who use hand tool and build it all by hand and not like any sort of CNC machine or 3D printing of any components, we're talking about, again, 1% of probably the
Yeah.
entire trade.
Yeah. Maybe even
and-
less.
I don't know, but it's
Yeah, sure,
it's
sure,
a
sure.
very, very
Minuscule
tiny,
amount.
tiny number.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant when I said like 99.9%. It's going to definitely feel like that. But yeah, there's going to be a very, very, very tiny subset of people who will survive. And I think that will just come down to like their expertise. It will just be unmatched, unprecedented. And can you be someone without that and get there? Yeah. But again, how many people do you know today can go into like hand tool woodworking to make tables and have people buy it when they can go to IKEA, plop down like $200, whatever, $500 for a table? I don't know what it is at IKEA, and that's
Sure.
good enough.
Yeah.
Or you're competing against, even in that world, worse because there's CNC machines that will cut all the wood perfect as if it's like 95% of someone doing by hand,
Yeah.
but way less a price.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so I think this helps put in perspective because everything you're talking about, it makes sense. Where you're looking at like as a business, how do you stay in business? How do you get the cash that you need in order to make the next game and make your living out of doing game development just purely almost through selling games, right?
Yep.
And so the one way is you get the high volume, you have an efficient pipeline, and you are essentially looking at is how do you compete with AAA studios who are doing this at scale, like big teams, big projects, right?
I would even say the AAA studios, though.
Oh,
I would
interesting.
say I'm not a AAA studio,
Yeah, you're not, for sure.
but in the last 2 weeks, I have already realized, we could greatly increase our pipeline of games and maintain the quality.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
we're doing 3 right now, and I'm looking at just the last 2 to 6 weeks of how much more efficient and productive I've gotten in the tools, and I'm like, we could probably do like 9 games a year
yeah,
of the same
Yeah.
quality.
yeah,
Like, and that's kind of crazy because
Yeah.
now you got me shipping 9 games of this quality versus before it was, let's say 3,
yeah,
or let's say it's even less, 1.5. So I don't know if that means the market's saturated or the market's
Sure.
just going to have more games of higher caliber that's going to
Yeah.
push down the bottom games again. Um,
Hmm.
I don't.
So let me change the question a little bit. Do you feel like this allows you to really do more game design? Like all these tools to kind of make these efficiency that you then get to come up with these experiences and mechanics and package them in a way that like you kind of get back to doing something that's more, how do you create fun engagement for the player? Because I think when we hear the numbers, when we hear AI, all these things, it is very much coded. Not saying that you're saying these things, but like a lot of that comes with this coding of efficiency, bureaucracy, just kind of soulless corporate. But when I'm hearing you talk about these things that you're like, you want, like for you, quality is at the end of the day, the customers enjoy what you are creating and that there is still some sort of this fantasy, friction, and fun that you've talked about before in these different talks too. So for you, you still see it though as a way to create these experiences using that framework. It just now you're more efficient in doing that, right? Like you enjoy the process
Yeah,
of that design.
and very few people, pretty much none, are building a game and going, I'm excited for the building the load and save system, guys. That is the pinnacle of game design. That is the pinnacle of building a game. Like, unless your game has some unique rewind mechanic and restore state at any point and like something fundamental to movement of time, probably, then no. Then all it is just a feature that's required that's blocking you from going and building the game you want to build.
Yeah.
And on top of that, yes, there's an efficiency piece even to the game design aspect
Yeah.
because I can have just tons of iterative feedback conversation, just tons of ideas just bombarded to me. And
Yeah.
some of them are straight trash. Like I'm like, I think I told you like on one of the games, like Ore Breaker it kept coming back and telling me like mathematically it's impossible to beat level 1 unless you have more upgrades. And it's like, well, yeah, no shit. That's how the game's designed to teach the player they die. That's a
Right.
bad idea. And the
Yeah.
model's adamant that this is like fundamental bad game design. But I'm like, yeah,
Right.
okay, whatever. But it's come up with tons of good ideas where I'm like, huh, okay. So there is an issue when you're killing enemies and you have to go pick up the resources that I should probably encourage certain plays so it's not as risky.
Yeah.
Or how do they deal with units that there's nothing that's going to stop it? Like a unit has a shield and that shield follows you the entire time. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this game's too cognitively high for them to understand, oh, bouncing off the tile. Right away, it
Yeah.
brought this up. It's like there's like health timer, the game, the boss progress, economy. You're trying to figure out what's spawning, and then you want the player to like figure out projectiles. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah.
Let's not do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like in this whole conversation, the part that I think is going to be the hardest pill to swallow is the fact that it's like all of this, it sounds like you're able to iterate, do all these things. And I don't know if this is the case, but it's like because it's reliant on these toolings that have, you know, impact on the environment, all these other things, displacement of jobs. I think that's what makes it really challenging to be like, that sounds all great. You know, like if you told me there was something that I was there where it's like I could get all these things, I could iterate on ideas. I don't have to know the coding. It's like cool. And it's like the extra stuff where it's like all these other negative consequences that come with it. You know,
They're
and
not
you
all
don't have to answer
negative
this or
though.
talk about it, but yeah.
Like there's an argument to be said, or what I believe is
Yeah.
what? Yes, this is. Let's just say destroying the environment. It has an impact
Sure.
on the environment, so you could just therefore say it's destroying it, and
Sure.
add disproportional value to humanity. That could be subjective, maybe not, but whatever. My argument to it is, well, what if this is lifting like global emissions by 30%? Let's pick a high number that's like, what? Yet it's actually less than if we didn't have it. To solve the problems we need to solve, to tackle whatever you want to pick, epidemics, pandemics, I mean, or global emissions, and we did not have AI. Go back 2015 and say technology, AI was never discovered, these models never
Right.
got out. We just stayed on the same course without them. And I sat there and said, yeah, but it'd take us 100 years to solve some of these problems that would actually
Yeah.
solve it. And the net is not 30%. We'd actually produce 80, 90, 100% more emissions on
Yeah.
the time it would take us to get there.
Yeah.
No, very few people talk about that. I don't know if that's how. We'll see how this plays out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Maybe it's just random people making games and destroying the world, human nature, right? Um, but I like to believe that it is going to rapidly increase and actually save humanity. It will actually
Mm,
be the reason to how we're able to tackle. I've seen it in one spot that is like a glimmer of hope, which is if you have a way that everyone can have a tool or a way to produce these very customized, personalized things easily. And now it's like everyone's walking around with this customized personal thing. And it's like, cool. So I open up my fridge. I take a picture. It already knows everything about me. It's like, oh, by the way, instead of this stuff expiring next week, and you didn't have to input it because that's the problem with these apps already exist there, is it's all manual work. I take a picture, everything's right, and there's all my preference. It immediately tells me what the meal plan this week is going to be. And you reduce waste, grocery waste. You can actually have real impact globally across the world with this stuff. And it
yeah,
actually doesn't take a crazy amount. When you start looking at the data of like how much waste is happening, especially in North America, and you start saying, even if I could impact that 3%, just by everyone having a personalized app that knows everything about them and as easy and
right.
convenient as that, you have huge ramifications. You also destroy a bunch of jobs again, though. I'm sorry, because you can,
Yeah,
if you're more efficient in eating your groceries, there's less demand, which means downstream there's less of that need to be produced. So
yeah.
the job
And
thing, I have no answer for, no hope.
yeah,
But to
yeah,
save the planet, I think we can actually do something.
yeah. Well, and I think ultimately it's like no one really knows. Like some of this we have to see how it plays out, and I think it's like because it all exists, all of us exist in this in a giant system, right? It's like people respond in different ways. There's different incentives, and that is completely out of the scope of this podcast. But I think from what you're talking about, again, it all comes down to how the tooling is used, how it's speeding up the efficiency, and everyone kind of has their own choice as to how that responds. And you could be bringing it back to game dev. You could be a game dev who's like, I am a hobbyist. Here's what I want to do. If you make that choice, then there's a second choice of, well, do you want to make your living off of this? Because that's going to require a different way of going about that.
Yep.
Or you accept that I'm not going to make money off of this and I'm going to have my different job, but I'm just going to enjoy the process of making games. And then therefore you shouldn't be worried about chasing trends and all these other things. Just focus on making your games and enjoying the process because that's what it comes down to. And then on the other side, it's okay, if you are going to use the AI tools, I mean, I think it's still the same. Maybe there's some games that exist where you just kind of rapidly put stuff out and you get to test stuff with your friends and it's very, very quick and you just get these ideas. They won't sell because people won't buy them because there's going to be higher quality things that have a bar. And so you kind of have to exist in these different realms, and it's not clear cut like this is how it's going to be, that's how it's going to be, but for each person to really think about how they want to exist. And again, the consequences and of everything beyond the scope of what we can cover in this podcast. But I hope that answers the viewer question. Again, it was a hard one. I think I mentioned that in the comment, but hope that was an interesting take. I do, again, want to bring it back to game dev a little bit because in all this conversation, you were talking about how do you find these games that are fun, or you're looking at, you have this game and you know what it takes to get it from where it is today to where it would need to be in order for people to pay money. There was an interesting video by Jonas Tyroller that came out yesterday, I believe, talking about Dodo Derby, and it was an announcement of a cancellation of a game that was not announced. And he's walking through the process of his journey going through that from the start of the idea, how they were, looking ahead at what they wanted to do, coming off the heels of Thronefall and its success, and reaching the point where they made the decision to ultimately cancel it. And, that video is great. You should watch it. It's going through that whole journey. Now, obviously Jonas is not here to represent himself, but if you were in that situation with one of your games, you had this idea, you kind of got to the point where you're playing it, you thought it was fun, there's all these problems. How would you make a different decision? What would you be looking at that game and like, what are the ways that you would be approaching it differently?
Mm, I know he's going to watch, so uh-oh.
We hope.
No, I know. I'll send him the link. And I never know if it's Jonas or Jonas. I always
I
say
don't
with
know
the J,
either.
so I'm sorry. I'm going to continue with the J.
Go for it. Yeah, tell us, please.
Okay, I mean, I didn't get the whole thing in the video. I think it was the right idea. It's it's an interesting idea. I was shocked that they had a timer. Immediately I saw that, I was like, oh, that's kind of not a great thing, especially when they switched to more co-op placement. It's like, I mean, like Peak doesn't have a timer. You just take whatever casual pace you want.
I
There's an
think it
indirect
does.
timer,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right.
but you can pick the easier modes and things like that, and it's not so
Gotcha.
looming right in the top.
Right, right, right,
Which
right.
I guess they did switch. Was it water they switched it over to?
Yeah, that was right. Or yeah, I think it was water or sand or something. I can't remember.
And then the other thing was like, why not just follow what they've already done? It's like there's a fantasy of going up. It's so easy. The thing I love about Peak is anytime someone asks me how or what that game is about, it's like, what are we doing? Going up. That's it. That's the whole onboarding. You're just going up. It doesn't matter. You'll figure it out. We're just going up. We're going to the peak. And looking at it, it just felt like they didn't want to be Peak, but they wanted to do something similar enough so that no one would say they're Peak. And then it's like, oh, we have to have these interesting mechanics. We can't just do that. Like, sure you can. Why not? Like, you could have had birds that just have gear that just literally try and grapple their way up and just drop the checkpoint system. It's surprising. That was one of my first things playing Peak was like there was no checkpoint, and it took an hour and a half when you first played for the first time, maybe even longer, 2 hours, to even beat the game. And that assumes you did not die.
Yeah.
And usually it meant you had somebody who's played the game before to kind of help you.
Yep.
So the player's forgiving if it's fun, and they don't feel like it's incredibly punishing. And I mean, I guess I was just shocked. Like, I guess they doubled down on the fantasy thing, and I'm like, yeah, but Peak had no fantasy. Like, I thought it was compelling. It's like you're going to the top. Like the
Yeah.
dream is to help each other and survival to the top, and it doesn't have to be this only one person wins world, and you can help
Sure.
up your buddy and pull them up, and
Yeah. But I guess like that's where I think when I watched the video, my takeaway was that they didn't feel confident that it was an interesting enough fantasy or it was fun enough. Like, yes, it's all these things, but they just didn't feel confident that they could get there or that it would take much longer to get there than they had the time for. That's where I guess maybe a little bit I wasn't sure, but I was getting the sense that it wasn't that there was anything wrong with that, but it's like they felt like it wasn't cohesive enough. Like it just wasn't quite what was there. I don't know. I don't know if I'm like phrasing that
I'll
well.
tell you my outsider.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was a little spot in the video that talked about it. Again, I just come back to I think they're basically building a Peak game and then sort of realized they're building a Peak game. And given that they had all these successes before them, it's like, well, we can't just build a Peak game. That's not
Gotcha.
enough. And Jonas, you mentioned in the video about this like striving to do better. You have all these successes, and I've been there even with Black Hole when we came back January, February, March. Me and Andy got stuck in the cycle of well, we have to do at least as the same or better. Like, oh, let's come up with something more unique. Oh, we can't. We need to come up with our mechanic, our twist, our thing, because well, now we have to because everyone's going to hold us to this standard, and like, there's no other reason. Like, okay, who cares about how long it takes? Let's be real. The gross sales on that game and they sold the IP. Like, no one's ever told me the numbers, but it's like, guys, like, the corp made millions, and it's sitting in whatever, like ETF yielding 7% adjusted for inflation, and you're all drawing at minimum 80,000 euros a year forever. So don't tell me that like if you're and they're still kept it small. It's not like they said, oh,
Right.
well, we hired out a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Like, and so the time is not a factor. It's maybe a
Yeah.
wasted amount of time. They want to do something else. They think it's not worth
Yeah.
the opportunity cost.
Yeah.
But if they really believe in the idea, they could go spend a year just doing it, and no one's going to bat an eye.
Yeah, yeah,
Like-
yeah. That's true. And maybe that's it. It's like because they have the luxury of being able to do whatever they want. I mean, maybe there is some kind of time pressure where they just want to get something out there. There must be some forcing function for them to be like, this is a decision we have to make. But they also don't have to just take. They can be picky with their ideas, I guess is what I'm saying. like maybe the reason for it is that they thought that they could do better with something else, so they were more interested in that. And that's totally valid as well, where it's like we got to the point where we prototyped it, we're playing it, we're getting this feedback, and we're just like, it's out there. Now that's where I kind of am wondering, like, why not just get it to the point where they could put it out and just say, here's Dodo Derby, you can play it, it's for free, and we're not doing anything with it, or even just a couple bucks, be like, this is the extent to what it is, and we're gonna move on to this next one. That was the only thing that I was surprised that they didn't go that route, just to make it available for people to play. But again, I don't know if that comes with a certain brand risk or
Exactly.
different decisions that they're making, which it was totally understandable and respectable too. But it was one of those ideas that came through my mind of there was a video on it, could have been cool, just been like, yeah, here you go, you can play what we had, and we're not going to make any bug fixes to it because this is just what it is.
They've I don't know how much more time it would take and like again, not to go back to the AI, but like what their stance is on that, because like if
Yeah.
everything is like no AI whatsoever,
Yeah.
like how many dudes their studio, they're very adamant against AI, even for
Hmm.
the technical it sounds like. I'm
Hmm.
like, well yeah, then to finish the game you're talking about months and months and months and months of work.
Hmm.
Versus for me to finish a game, even a multiplayer game like that, we're max 2 months.
Hmm.
Like looking at what they were doing and how it's gonna work and the features I would want to add and things like that. I'm like, no way. On the
Yeah.
coding side, 2 months.
Yeah.
Like, so for 2 months they could have. I don't know how long the art would have taken, but if that
Hmm.
was 2 months, and you could have done a free to play game to make $0, not for DLC free to play, just to figure out how to do a free to play game and if they can figure out network effects. Because they're building a network effect based game, which is
Yeah.
the way that game's going to snowball is you need the player base there to convince the others to continue to play. But if no one's there, no one wants to play.
Yeah.
It's why every social network's incredibly difficult to start.
Yeah. 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 And then you have to find that way to start those network effects to get it all going. Tons of great literature on that one too. I don't know how often that's talked about within the game dev space, but definitely a good topic to look at. I think in that I was having an idea kind of pop in my mind of for your studio, for Aramis and Thornity and what you're working on,
Mhm.
how much are you thinking about like building a community and audience versus again just kind of looking at Steam from those like algorithmic approach to just kind of letting Steam promote and do the marketing for you. Looking at someone like Thin Matrix or looking at someone Sock Pop Collective, right? It's like they have their Patreon and things like that too. There's different styles, right? Um, how would you describe your thought process of having Aramis and Thornity studio fans versus Aramis fans and maybe the rare Thornity fan throwing a little bit of shade
Listen,
your
at
way?
Godot, there was Thornity fans.
Yeah, they exist.
Yeah, someone has to take a picture with me.
That's true.
So,
It wasn't just people you paid to be like, hey,
no, I mean, if you're operating a business, you're thinking about this on some level.
yeah,
So I would be incorrect to say that we have not thought about like again, I've thought about a free to play game purely from the business stance too, which is I don't make anything on the free to play. I get access to those who are following the page and now community posting onto them when we do release a game. And
Yeah.
if the game did do well, you could do other ways. Cosmetic DLC, you could play around with the trade cards and things like this. Um, so I'd say I'm kind of lazy with it, to be quite honest,
sure.
because I know Connor's going to come in here and be like, "Where's your newsletter?"
I say it like almost every month at least once. I'm like, please.
But I think it's disingenuous to your audience if you're not going to actually produce the content, and I don't want
I
to
agree
write
with
it.
that. I agree with
So
that. Yeah.
I don't want to sign people up for some random future 2 years. I send an email, and the email is literally just go buy our stuff. So for me, it's more like this. We're doing this, sub to the
Yes.
channel, you get this content. I know on some level indirectly that means one day I can be like, August 27th, there's 3 games releasing. Maybe you should go support us. But the newsletter, I'm not going to write it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Mainly the reason I ask is because it just feels so overwhelming. Everything we talked about, I'm thinking about from my perspective of I'm at the start of my journey. I'm feeling like I have to learn how to make games. I have to learn all these skills. Some of it maybe I need to look into exploring like what is my own philosophy toward AI and how I want to incorporate that. A big part of it too is I need to make connections with other artists and people who can, I am not convinced anymore that I can be a solo developer, nor do I have that interest. In general, I am someone who's an extrovert. I love working with other people. I love talking game dev, and the more that I could collaborate, the better. But all of this, stacks up where it's like, well, how do I find Sunday Brunch Studio fans? How do I do all these things and balance it? And so it's like sometimes it just feels like that overwhelming weight of all these things, and what I think keeps me centered is I just have to get games out there. I can't have fans if I don't have a game or a story to tell or something to share with others. And even if at the start it's only like 2 to 3 people who are just like, hey, this is cool, or this is objectively a very bad game, but I appreciate the work that you're putting in, and I'd love to play test the games. Like I'm just trying to hold on to that fact so I don't get too overwhelmed with everything else that's going on, because I think you are much further in the road. Now you have players who have bought a game about feeding a black hole. Now you have connections of developers you can work with. They have their fans like Thomas Stewart, and his YouTube channel and stuff like that too. It's like the amount of calculus that you're doing is very, very different than I think than the perspective that I'm at. And sometimes I get caught up in the feeling that I have to be doing what you're doing or what Thomas or Aramis or Sockhouse is doing, when really what I need to be doing is just making games and enjoying that process. I have to appreciate being the carpenter first before I can be IKEA, if that even makes sense.
Do the thing that you're just going to do.
Yeah.
Is probably the best advice I can give.
Yeah.
Like, there's things I know Aramis and Thorny should be doing, and we're not. There's things that we're doing that, larger places aren't, that they should. Like, and you kind of just can see any path too. Yeah. Like, a game of Feeding Black Hole, there was like Aramis's YouTube channel, and not to bash the YouTube channel, but it was like max 2,000 wishlist to that game, max.
I see.
From 25,000 subs and everything like that.
Yeah.
Even when I go back, when he does the videos, before we had content creators, like it's under 1,000. Now, did that help the snowball help on Steam?
Yeah.
Of course, to some level. But, the game got picked up by content creators, and I just realized, wait, I don't need to build the fan base myself. I could just go get someone else who already has the fan base about themselves, and they show a game that looks interesting to them, and all of a sudden that fan base becomes Aramis and Thorny Co. fan base, or maybe it doesn't extend to the brand. They're just a fan about a game about Feeding a Black Hole, and that's it, and that's fine. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I'm in grad school at the moment as well. On top of doing all of this, and I had a professor for marketing who was saying that a brand is what a friend tells a friend, and I think that's just so true with content creators as well. Of like, hey, if they have a game that's worth playing, they're going to share it with others, and it's really more about like how do you think about what you want to do and show up, and it's not about creating a brand because one game studio does this. It's like, I think you said it well. What do you want to do and how do you want to show up? And I'm like really trying to hold on to that because it can be so tempting to, get caught up in everything. And know that over time that'll evolve, that like where I am today is going to be very different where I am in a year, hopefully, because I'm committing to this. And, I think that's why some of the community is so important too, because if I can set up my environment to do the things and be around the people that help me make these games, yourself is one of those people around me who's encouraging me. That is the greatest chance of success that I can have, because it means I won't quit. And it's more a matter of how long can I stay playing this infinite game versus feeling that struggle of like, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. It's like, no, you can be doing that, but if you don't want to, then find a different way to do it. It's like there's off meta picks that you can go with too, but everybody just needs to stay in the game for as long as they can and not lose hope no matter what's going on.
And I mean, it doesn't mean you can't pick a shitty path. Like
yes, I am.
To be honest,
I reserve the right to fail.
It doesn't mean like, oh, you saying that you're just gonna do what you want to do is the most optimal path. No, like I've seen it time over time. People are like, I'm not gonna do blah. I'm gonna double down on this, and you're like, dead game. Tons of times I see this. People come with this, and they're like, no, I can make this work, and this is what I want to do. And I'm like, that's fine, but I'm telling you, I can see this from a mile away. It's a dead game if you go that path. If you're just going to dig your heels in, and how do you learn the skill of self-awareness? I don't know. Like you read a boatload of self-help books, or you listen to this podcast, or you pay somebody to come in and just tell you the truth when you need it. I don't know. Or you're just intrinsically self-aware. I mean, we all think we are. I don't think most people are, but because I do think there's value in saying no to a lot of things and doubling down on what you want to do and what you believe is right. But equally, you kind of have to be the person who's like, no, no, but like kind of keep your ear open occasionally to like, okay, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I could be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there might be value in that, or
Yeah.
that has some merit to it. Again, I've also seen people who just, I don't want to say luck, but they put on the earmuffs. They don't listen to anyone. They head down the path and they just prove everyone wrong too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's both. Well, either way, no matter which way you pick, I think what I've been thinking about too is trying to just keep in mind that I am making games for other people. Like when I'm sitting down, sitting in front of my computer, just typing away, tweaking all these things, getting playtests, making my bad games, that at the end of the day, I need to get my game out there and keep in mind that it is in the service of putting something out there for someone to enjoy, whether that's 2 people or maybe someday 2 million people, that's really what I'm doing. And so the more that I just ignore that or don't participate, at least for me, I really like knowing that there's someone on the other side who's going to be experiencing this. Otherwise, I just make games for myself and then just like not release it or talk about it or anything like that too. So even if you do get lucky, it's like there's probably still some thought of here's what I think someone is going to enjoy. You just may be more or less receptive to those outside opinions, but that's what games are about. And I think sometimes too, as gamers, because I assume many game developers are also gamers, we tend to want to optimize or, min-max and do all these different things, or depending even on the game genre, you may or may not do that. But it's like, you just got to make the game, just like enjoy it, enjoy the process.
Or don't enjoy it. Like, honest truth, right now, I enjoy it and don't enjoy this moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm sure I'll probably enjoy it when it's done. And I look back and I'm like, oh, look, that was...
Yeah. You'll forget all the hard times and the long nights.
I enjoy the level of being in, like, quote-unquote flow and, like, how much is getting done. But on the same sentence, I am like this. Like, not enjoying, knowing every day from now until, like, August 27th is, like, 10 hours every day minimum. Like I've done the Excel sheet of timeline. It's like every day has something, and it's not. You can't have a 0 day. You can't have a bad day. You just have to like lock in. I know it comes at consequences of other things. I know there's personal sacrifice. I know my wife sacrifices a lot to make this happen. I would love to spend more time with my kids when they get home, but right now I'm willing to trade this month of time for the upside.
Yeah,
not everyone
when it's
is.
Seasonal too,
and
like
and you don't.
Temporary.
Not everyone wants to.
Yeah,
so
and that as well. Yeah, and I think that's the other important distinction is all these things you're just sharing your experience and saying what works for you, what works for your family. You know
what
the
do you mean,
details
Connor?
about
It's
more.
the right way.
It's the only way.
It's the thorny way.
Oh man, I don't know what the Connor way is. I got to figure that out.
Who said this wasn't a dictatorship?
Oh man. So fun fact, the original podcast was going to be named Game Dev According to Thornity. So but we went away from that, and so that's the other version is that when we get the second podcast going, you can have your dictatorship just saying this is what it is.
That channel's just all the hot takes I say. That's it. The 10 hot take commandments.
Oh man, when you have your learning course and you start selling that, that's what you can name
There's
it.
There's no course. It's the Thorny model that I sell.
It's the Thorny model. Oh my goodness. We're gonna have to get Aramis's take on this and be like, Aramis, are you in trouble? Do you need help? Well, I think on that, we're going to wrap it up a little bit here. As always, if you're interested in following the work that we're doing, I believe every single week I've asked, the YouTube channel is the best way to follow Corey. Has that changed? Do you have a newsletter in this week?
No, there's not going to be a newsletter. I don't want to write a newsletter.
And if you want to follow my work, SundayBrunchStudios.com. I am trying to figure out what I'm doing with my newsletter. So if you want to see what I'm doing, that's over there. Any final words, thoughts, closing remarks that you want to share with everybody?
I might have to steal Jonas's idea as the next game I do.
What would you name that game?
I don't know. I wouldn't do birds, that's for sure. But
I was trying to get you to say Dodo Darby, but I guess not. I guess not.
no.
And this is why I've only sold $100 in gross sales, and Corey sold more than me. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll talk to you again next week. Zen. I am Zen.